Love bombing. Love bombing is not affection. It's emotional flooding. Too much attention, too soon, too intense, before trust has time to form. This is not romance. It's tempo manipulation. The human brain uses time as a verification system. Consistency across weeks lowers uncertainty. Love bombing bypasses that process by overwhelming your nervous system with dopamine, oxytocin, and novelty. Your cognition doesn't ask, is this stable? It asks, how do I keep this feeling? That's the exploit. Love bombing creates a false peak, an artificial emotional high that cannot be maintained. Once attachment forms, the intensity drops. Confusion begins. You chase the original version of them. That chase is the point. This tactic works because intensity feels like clarity, but clarity comes from repetition, not acceleration. Watch the language. Never felt this way. You're different. We're the same. I've never told anyone this. These are not red flags individually. They're red flags in compression. Speed is the tell. Love bombing collapses emotional distance before consent can catch up. Boundaries feel rude. Skepticism feels like sabotage. Resistance is not emotional withdrawal. It's temporal control. Slow the pace. Delay escalation. Watch what survives the slowdown. Healthy connection stabilizes under friction. Manipulation decays. If intensity punishes patience, it was never intimacy. Gaslighting is not lying. It's reality destabilization. The goal isn't to convince you of their truth. It's to make you doubt yours. It starts small. That never happened. You're misremembering. You're too sensitive. Not aggressive. Casual. Confident. Your brain flags an error. Conflict between memory and authority creates cognitive friction. To reduce that friction, the mind often edits itself. That's the exploit. Gaslighting targets epistemic trust, your trust in your own perception. Once that's compromised, every conclusion becomes negotiable. You stop asking, what's true? You start asking, what did I miss? Notice the asymmetry. They're never unsure, never confused, never revising. Certainty is weaponized. Gaslighting also inverts accountability. When you raise an issue, the conversation becomes about your tone, your mental health, your motives. The original event disappears. Only your reaction remains. This creates learned self-surveillance. You preemptively doubt yourself to avoid conflict. That's behavioral control without commands. Resistance begins with external anchors. Write things down. Save messages. Track patterns, not moments. Gaslighting collapses when reality becomes distributed. It requires isolation to function. Also, watch your body. Chronic confusion is a signal. So is the feeling of, I need to explain this better every time. Truth doesn't require perfect phrasing, only consistency. If every disagreement ends with you apologizing for existing, you're not communicating. You're being recalibrated. Reality is not negotiable, and anyone who insists otherwise is not mistaken. Intermittent reinforcement is addiction architecture, not constant reward. Unpredictable reward. The same mechanism behind slot machines, push notifications, and toxic relationships. Your brain does not bond to pleasure. It bonds to relief after uncertainty. That's the trap. Attention appears, then disappears, then returns just enough to reset hope. This creates a dopamine feedback loop that's stronger than consistency. The nervous system stays alert, scanning for the next hit. You're not attached to the person. You're attached to the pattern. Notice the structure. Affection follows withdrawal. Validation arrives after distress. Relief gets misinterpreted as love. Over time, your baseline shifts. You accept less because less feels earned. Stability feels suspicious. Calm feels empty. That's conditioning. Intermittent reinforcement also trains compliance. You learn, subconsciously, that questioning the system risks losing the reward. So you adapt. You minimize needs. You tolerate ambiguity. This isn't emotional immaturity. It's operant conditioning. Resistance requires pattern recognition, not willpower. Ask one question. Is the inconsistency random or reactive? If attention returns only after you pull away, comply, or suffer, it's not coincidence. It's control. Healthy connection is boring in the best way. Predictable, reliable, uneventful. Manipulation needs chaos to stay interesting. If the highs only exist because the lows are engineered, you're not in a relationship. Mirroring is accelerated intimacy through imitation. They don't discover you, they reflect you. Same values, same wounds, same opinions, especially early. It feels uncanny, effortless, fated. That's because your brain is encountering itself. Mirroring works by collapsing uncertainty. Similarity reduces cognitive load. Familiarity signals safety, but real alignment emerges slowly. Mirroring appears immediately. That's the tell. Early stage mirroring often focuses on identity cores, trauma, worldview, moral stances. These are high-trust disclosures. When echoed back too quickly, they create false depth. You think, they get me. What's happening is data extraction. Later, that data becomes leverage. Your values get reframed against you. Your vulnerabilities get reinterpreted as flaws. Mirroring also prevents friction. Disagreement is delayed. Conflict is postponed. The relationship feels perfect because it's incomplete. Resistance requires temporal testing. Introduce harmless disagreement. Change your preference. Watch what happens. Authentic people adapt. Mirrors distort or shatter. Also track asymmetry. How much do you know about them, independent of you? If their identity only exists in relation to yours, you're not bonding. You're being simulated. Mirrors don't reveal depth. Triangulation is social leverage. Instead of addressing you directly, they introduce a third point. A person, an ex, a friend, a hypothetical someone else. The relationship stops being a line. It becomes a triangle. That extra angle creates instability. Comparison enters. Scarcity enters. Competition replaces communication. You're no longer asking, what do we need? You're asking, where do I rank? That's the exploit. Triangulation works because humans are status sensitive. The threat of replacement activates loss aversion faster than logic can intervene. Sometimes the third party is real. Sometimes it's implied. Everyone else agrees with me. My friends think you're overreacting. No names, no verification, just pressure. This shifts the power dynamic. Now you're defending your position instead of discussing the issue. The original problem dissolves into performance anxiety. Watch for timing. Triangulation appears during conflict, never during calm resolution. It's not information, it's intimidation. Resistance is structural. Refuse to engage with absent voices. Bring every issue back to the dyad. If someone else has a problem, they can tell me themselves. If this is between us, let's keep it between us. Healthy systems don't require spectators. They don't outsource accountability. The moment a relationship needs an audience to function, you're not being connected. The Ben Franklin effect. This tactic reverses logic. Instead of liking someone and then helping them, you help them and then your brain decides you must like them. Behavior edits belief. They ask for a small favor, nothing dramatic. Advice, a quick task, a little time. You comply. Your mind now has a problem. Why would I help someone I don't care about? So it resolves the contradiction by upgrading their value. That's cognitive dissonance reduction. The effect scales. One favor becomes a pattern. Effort accumulates. Attachment follows. This is subtle. There's no pressure, no demand. Just a steady drain of energy that never quite balances. Watch the direction of flow. Who is investing more? Time, labor, emotional processing. If favors only move one way, liking becomes obligation. This tactic is powerful because it bypasses emotion. You don't feel manipulated. You feel reasonable. Resistance isn't refusing all favors. That's paranoia. Resistance is reciprocity tracking. Healthy systems self-correct. Effort circulates. Support oscillates. If you're always the one helping out, your attachment may be manufactured. Affection should precede investment, not the other way around. If liking someone feels like a conclusion you arrived at instead of an experience you had. Breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is hope management, not commitment, not rejection. Just enough signal to keep you oriented toward them. A message, a like, a check-in, then nothing. You're not ignored, you're kept available. This tactic exploits the brain's intolerance for unresolved loops. Ambiguity creates cognitive tension. Tension demands resolution. So you wait, you interpret, you fill gaps with meaning. That's the work. Breadcrumbing externalizes effort. They invest minimal energy. You invest maximal interpretation. Notice the imbalance. Initiation is rare. Depth is shallow. Consistency is absent. But possibility is always implied. This is emotional edge computing. They do the least possible to prevent disengagement. Breadcrumbing also protects optionality. You're not chosen, you're parked. Resistance is brutal, but clean. Remove potential from the equation. Judge only behavior. Interest that doesn't progress is disinterest with aesthetics. Ask yourself one question. If nothing changed, would this ever become real? If the answer requires imagination, you're not in a connection. You're in a waiting room. Hope is not evidence. Ghosting. Ghosting is communication by absence, not silence from overwhelm. Silence as control. No explanation, no closure, just disappearance. Your brain panics because unfinished social loops trigger threat detection. You search for causes, mistakes, signals you missed. Self-blame fills the vacuum. That's the exploit. Ghosting transfers emotional labor entirely to you. They exit without consequence. You're left processing impact without context. In some cases, ghosting is avoidance. In others, it's punishment. Withdrawal to reassert dominance. The difference is pattern. If silence follows vulnerability, conflict, or boundary setting, it's not fear, it's enforcement. Ghosting also preserves image. No confrontation means no accountability. They remain good in their own narrative. Resistance is internal closure. You do not need their explanation to understand the behavior. The absence is the explanation. Do not chase. Chasing rewards the tactic. Silence is information. Treat it as final. Healthy people communicate endings. Unhealthy systems disappear to avoid responsibility. If someone can vanish without explanation, they were never participating fully to begin with. Hoovering. Hoovering is re-entry without repair. They disappear, time passes, you detach. Then, a message, an apology, a memory, a just checking in, not to reconnect, to test access. Hoovering is named after vacuum cleaners for a reason. It's about suction, pulling you back into an old dynamic without changing the structure. Notice the timing. It rarely happens when you're vulnerable. It happens when you're stabilizing, when independence threatens relevance. The language is strategic. I've changed. I've been thinking about you. I didn't realize what I lost. But specifics are missing. No mechanics, no accountability, no plan. Emotion without architecture. Hoovering relies on nostalgia bias. Your brain remembers peaks more vividly than patterns. Pain fades. Hope reinflates. That's the loop. They don't address why it failed. They just reopen the door. Resistance is not anger. It's structural memory. Ask one question. What is different now, operationally? If the answer is feelings, not behaviors, nothing has changed. Real repair requires friction, awkward conversations, clear boundaries, sustained effort. If someone returns only when you're no longer chasing, they don't miss you. They miss control. DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. DARVO is conflict inversion. You raise a concern, calmly, specifically. They deny it happened, or minimize it. When denial fails, they attack. Your tone, your motives, your character. Then comes the reversal. Suddenly, they're the one being hurt. You're the aggressor. The original issue vanishes. That's the mechanism. DARVO works because the human brain is conflict averse. When emotional intensity spikes, accuracy drops. You switch from problem solving to damage control. Now you're defending yourself instead of addressing behavior. This tactic reframes accountability as abuse. Boundaries become cruelty. Questions become threats. If you feel like you walked into a conversation and exited as the villain, check the pattern.